Welcome on board, chosen one. Look who finally woke up. Look who finally stepped into the light after everyone swore you'd stay crawling in the shadows. Funny how the same people who said you were too much, too weird, too intense are suddenly whispering behind locked doors like somebody just spotted a storm with your name on it. And the funniest part? They still pretend they don't know why the air shakes when you walk in. They act confused, but trust me, their nerves already told the truth. They can feel it, the shift, the danger, the rise of someone they should have never underestimated. And let me say this without flinching, when they said you were nothing, that was their last mistake. When they laughed at your dreams, that was the moment the universe stamped your upgrade. When they mocked your silence, they were basically signing a contract they didn't understand. Every word they threw at you, it aged like poison in their own system. Press the like button and subscribe to pay this message back. Now let's keep going, because this story is only getting sharper. You're standing in the aftermath of a war none of them even realized they triggered. They thought they were bullying some average soul who'd eventually break down and disappear. Meanwhile, you were evolving in the quiet. The room went silent, not because you stopped talking, but because everyone else finally ran out of courage. They sensed something they couldn't name, but every instinct screamed at them, "Don't poke that one again." The tension hits different now. The world treats you like they're scared of waking a sleeping weapon. They move around you softly, carefully, pretending it's respect when it's actually fear. They try to hide it, but the shift is too loud. The silence feels like a held breath. The energy feels like a danger sign taped over your aura. And you just stand there, looking around, wondering when the hell you got this powerful. You want the truth? You earned every inch of this atmosphere. The most dangerous person in the room isn't the one screaming. It's the one who stopped needing to explain themselves. The one who watched, observed, learned, and finally said, "I'm done playing small." And here's where things get wicked. While the world was searching for threats in places that look scary, the real danger was being shaped in the most boring spaces imaginable. Not in underground bases, not in secret camps. No, you were being formed in everyday life while no one was paying attention. They studied criminals, spies, warlords, but completely missed the quiet soul sharpening in a cubicle. They monitored foreign agents, but ignored the one person in a coffee shop who could read a whole room faster than their software. They thought monsters only came from chaos, not from people who learned to survive in silence. They spent decades mapping patterns, identifying risks, labeling personalities, and still failed to understand that the universe had been sculpting something far more precise. Someone forged through pain, through embarrassment, through years of being misunderstood. Someone who learned strategy instead of sympathy. Someone who learned observation instead of approval. They thought they were searching for wolves. Instead, they found the sheep who learned to think like wolves. And that scared them more than any enemy overseas. Behavioral analysts quit because the data didn't make sense. Profiles of people who weren't supposed to exist kept showing up. Patterns that didn't follow their theories. Intelligence levels that didn't match their categories. People like you. The overlooked, the underestimated, the written-off ones who turned every wound into a weapon and every rejection into fuel. They said, "Recruit this person or we're all dead." But the truth, they were already too late, because you had already recruited yourself. Every sleepless night wondering what's wrong with me was training. Every job that rejected you was actually a denied security clearance because you were too powerful for them to manage. Every person who said you're too intense was just exposing their own weak wiring. Every betrayal was psychological conditioning. Every heartbreak was emotional combat. These weren't failures. These were upgrades. You've been operating at classified levels your entire life and didn't even know it. You weren't breaking, you were being sharpened. Society's rejects aren't broken, they're restricted access. They're the files no one wants to open because the truth inside is too overwhelming. So here we are, chosen one. The world finally sees what you are. The silence around you isn't emptiness, it's respect mixed with fear. The shift you feel isn't imagination, it's the universe clearing your path. And the enemies who once mocked you? They're the ones trembling now, replaying every moment they ever tried you, realizing history just flipped the script. And you're not the underdog anymore. You're the anomaly, the glitch, the upgrade they never prepared for, the reason analysts quit. Before we go any deeper, chosen one, look at you, still here, still locked in, still reading the very words that made trained analysts pack their bags and walk out. That alone tells me you're built different. So here's your moment. If you're ready to own the power they tried to hide from you, drop 777 in the comments. Not for luck, but as a signal to the universe that you're stepping into the identity they were afraid to recruit. That tiny action keeps this mission alive, pushes this message further, and proves you're not just watching from the shadows anymore. And chosen one, pay attention. If you really are who I think you are, you'll feel something pulling you to stay all the way through. Not curiosity, recognition. This script was designed for people who scare experts without trying. People like you. So hit the like button, subscribe, and tighten your grip. What's coming next isn't a lesson, it's a classified breakdown of why the world reacts to you the way it does. Now shift your posture, breathe once, and follow me. The deeper layers start right here. Number 1. The one they couldn't classify even under pressure. They didn't reject you because you were unqualified. They rejected you because their instincts screamed run. That line alone should make a few enemies swallow their fear, because it exposes the truth they've been trying to bury for years. And you finally get to hear it out loud instead of feeling it in silence. They wanted you to think you were the problem. They wanted you to believe you were lacking something. But deep down, they always knew the truth. You weren't built for their small rooms, their small minds, or their small expectations. You were built for something they couldn't measure, dissect, or contain. And the moment their eyes locked with yours, their survival brain kicked in like an emergency alarm. Let's talk about that job you didn't get. You probably thought it was because someone else had more experience, a better resume, or a fancy recommendation letter. Cute theory. But here's what really happened. The interviewer felt something primal when you sat down. Something sharp behind your calm expression. Something dangerous hiding behind your polite tone. Their logic tried to evaluate your qualifications. Their biology told them you were the one person in the room with the potential to flip the hierarchy upside down. And trust me, people like that always choose safety over brilliance. They didn't deny you because you were unqualified. They denied you because they weren't ready to deal with someone who could see straight through them. And what about those relationships that exploded out of nowhere? The ones where they said, "I can't handle you, you're too much," or "something about you scares me." You assumed it was your fault. You assumed you were overwhelming. But here's the colder truth. They weren't protecting themselves from heartbreak. They were protecting themselves from exposure. You noticed too much. You perceived the cracks in their stories, the contradictions in their words, the micro-hesitations they didn't even know they were making. You read their patterns before they understood their own motivations. You saw their intentions before they acted on them. Nobody wants to date someone who can see through their lies before they even form them. Every slammed door, every "don't call me again," every moment someone tried to shrink you, that wasn't punishment. It was self-defense. They weren't pushing you away because you were broken. They were pushing you away because you were the first person in their life capable of reading them like a classified file. And let's be painfully honest here, you didn't survive in the margins because you were weak. You survived there because no environment built by ordinary people ever felt safe enough for someone with your wiring. The universe placed you outside their neat little boxes because if you had stayed inside them, the whole system would have short-circuited. You weren't meant to blend in with the crowd. You weren't meant to be another background character in their bland story. You were meant to be the anomaly that breaks every rule they rely on. You think you struggle socially? No, you simply operate at an intelligence level that requires more bandwidth than most humans have available. You think you're too observant? No, you're just capable of seeing things their brains filter out for emotional comfort. You think you're overreacting? No. You've just learned to pick up danger signals long before they become visible to anyone else. This is why they couldn't classify you. This is why they couldn't recruit you. This is why analysts quit, because your mind doesn't work like theirs. Your instincts don't fire like theirs. Your emotional resilience doesn't crack like theirs. People like you develop skills that operatives spend decades trying to master. You read micro-expressions like their binary code. You sense shifts in tone faster than lie detectors can register them. You predict behavior using invisible algorithms your brain built in silence while everyone else was busy pretending to be normal. You can walk into a room and instantly feel who's lying, who's scared, who's plotting, and who's pretending. You don't ask for these abilities, they just happen. And here's what hits even harder. You didn't study these skills. You didn't take a course. You didn't read a manual. You learned them through survival, through being pushed out of social circles, through being isolated, through watching people's masks fall when they thought you weren't paying attention, through betrayal so sharp it forced your brain to evolve. You became a high-level behavioral decoder because life gave you no other choice. The enemy will hate hearing this next part, but let's say it anyway. Some people break under pressure, others become the pressure. You became the pressure. You became the storm they didn't predict, the variable they couldn't solve, the misfit they couldn't file, the danger they couldn't name. And here's the wildest part. You never bragged about any of it. You thought this was normal. You thought everyone could sense lies before words formed. You thought everyone could feel someone's real intentions behind their smile. You thought everyone could walk into a room and instantly map the social dynamics. No, chosen one. That's not normal. That's classified. And you want to know why life gave you the hard path, why people left, why jobs ghosted you, why you always felt like the outsider. Because if you had stayed inside their world, you would have destroyed their illusion of control without even trying. They needed you far away, not because you're unworthy, but because you're the kind of person who shifts the entire balance just by existing. And if right now you're asking yourself, why me? Why did I become like this? Why was I shaped this way? Here's the answer. Because someone in this world has to see the truth. Someone has to hear the things others refuse to say. Someone has to operate at a level the rest can't comprehend. Someone has to survive what was meant to erase them. and that someone turned out to be you. You didn't choose this path, but you mastered it. You didn't ask for this strength, but you earned it. You didn't want to be feared, but the universe made sure your presence demands respect. And the ones who tried to reject you, the ones who slammed the doors, they weren't protecting you from failure. They were protecting themselves from exposure, because deep down they knew, if this person ever wakes up, we're done. And now look at you. Awake, aware, unfiltered, uncontainable. You were never the misfit. You were the mutation, the upgrade, the classified threat they tried to keep out of their systems. And now you finally understand. They didn't reject you because you didn't belong. They rejected you because you outgrew them before you ever walked in the door. Welcome to the level they feared. Let's keep going. Number 2, the training they never told you were taking. They thought they were watching you fail. They were actually watching you train. That one sentence alone should choke every enemy who ever smirked while you stumbled through something you didn't understand. Because here's the truth they never wanted to face. Every awkward moment, every uncomfortable silence, every social misstep they laughed at, it was shaping you into the exact threat they now panic about. You weren't failing, you were refining, you were sharpening, you were learning how humans operate at a level they're still too fragile to admit exists. Let's start with those moments when you felt like you didn't fit in with anyone. You probably sat there thinking, what's wrong with me? Why can't I be normal? But imagine this, a young operative thrown into a foreign country with nothing but instincts. They don't speak the language. They don't fit the culture. They don't understand the social rules. At first, they look clueless, but the more lost they feel, the more their senses sharpen. They start observing, decoding, analyzing. They learn not by being guided, but by surviving. That was you. Except nobody told you you were in the field. Every room you entered became a test site. Every person you interacted with became a case study. Every silence became intel. You weren't socially awkward. You were gathering data faster than your mouth could catch up. Some people learned to communicate. Others learned to read the entire battlefield. You became the second type. When you sat quietly at gatherings, people assumed you were shy. They assumed you were anxious. They assumed you didn't know what to say. Cute theory, but no. You were scanning the environment like a sensor. You were noticing who kept glancing at the door, who kept checking their phone, who kept adjusting their tone, who couldn't maintain eye contact. You were processing micro-behaviors subconsciously while everyone else was bragging about weekend plans. Imagine this, a supercomputer plugged into a 1990s monitor. The world only saw the slow screen. Nobody realized the machine inside was building simulations at lightning speed. That's you. Your brain has been running threat assessments since childhood, long before you even knew what the word threat meant. You could walk into a room and instantly feel who was dangerous, who was lying, who was playing hero, and who was waiting to stab someone in the back. And you didn't learn that from books. You learned it because you had to, because life placed you in environments where people wore masks tighter than their own skin. And yes, you've wondered, why do I always feel like I'm watching everything? Why can't I just relax like everyone else? Here's the answer you've been waiting for. Relaxing is for people who never had to survive anything. You weren't given that luxury. You were given precision. You were given instinct. You were given an operating system built for danger long before you understood the world was dangerous. People mocked you for overthinking, but your overthinking saved you from half the disasters they fell into head first. They teased you for being quiet, but your silence let you hear the truth under their noise. They joked that you analyze too deeply, not realizing that your depth is the reason you saw their intentions before they even made a move. You weren't awkward, you were in surveillance mode. Now let's talk about those moments where you felt invisible, the ones where you stood at the edge of the group, blending into the background. You thought it was because nobody cared, but imagine this: a sniper in camouflage crawling through the grass. To the untrained eye, they look like nothing, just scenery. But to those who understand, that nothing is the deadliest thing in the field. Your invisibility was never a curse. It was a cloak, a shield, a position of power. When nobody sees you, nobody monitors you. When nobody monitors you, nobody restricts you. When nobody restricts you, you evolve freely. And evolve you did. You learned to observe without being observed, to process without revealing, to calculate without showing your hand. Tell me if this sounds familiar. You walk into a room and feel everything before you see anything. You sense tension before a fight happens. You feel dishonesty the moment someone opens their mouth. You detect fear in someone's breathing pattern. You catch jealousy in someone's eyes before they even realize it themselves. You think that's an accident? That's training. Life didn't give you a formal classroom. It gave you real humans, real danger, real lies, real patterns to analyze. Your social failures weren't failures. They were drills. Just like how soldiers crawl under barbed wire while bullets fly overhead, you crawled through social minefields where people's emotions exploded without warning. You didn't just survive. You learned. Imagine this: a boxer who doesn't know they're a boxer until they get punched. That was you. You were thrown into emotional fights, psychological traps, manipulation games, ego battles, long before you even understood what those things were. And somehow you adapted faster than anyone expected. You learned to duck toxic energy. You learned to dodge manipulation. You learned to counter lies with silence that hit harder than anger ever could. They called you sensitive. They didn't realize your sensitivity was a radar. And yes, chosen one, I know the next question forming in your head. Why did I have to learn all this the hard way? Why couldn't my life be normal? Because normal people don't become threats. Normal people don't shake analysts. Normal people don't unsettle entire rooms by simply existing. You needed the hard path because your strength needed pressure. Your instincts needed chaos. Your awareness needed noise so it could learn to cut through it. If you had lived an easier life, you would have blended in with the crowd. But you weren't meant to blend. You were meant to track patterns like a machine. You were meant to sense danger like a shadow. You were meant to rise from silence like a classified weapon. Everything you thought was a flaw was actually field conditioning. You learned emotional mapping. You learned psychological profiling. You learned tactical awareness. You learned survival-level intuition. And nobody taught you. You built it yourself through experience sharp enough to bleed. But here's the part that should make every enemy sweat. You didn't just pass the tests. You passed tests you didn't even know you were taking. You mastered skills people trained decades for. You built instincts machines can't replicate. You developed awareness that scares professionals. When analysts saw profiles like yours, they didn't panic because you were dangerous. They panicked because they couldn't predict you. They quit because your behavioral pattern didn't match any model they rely on. You weren't trained in a lab. You were trained in life, in rejection, in silence, in loneliness, in betrayal, in observing people until their masks slipped. Every moment you hated about your past is the reason you're powerful now. And now you stand here, chosen one. Not broken, not awkward, not too much, but fully equipped. You survived training no one warned you about. You built skills no one meant to give you. You became a psychological weapon without ever trying. This is why they wanted to recruit you. This is why analysts quit. This is why people tremble around you. This is why the universe shaped you differently. You weren't in the wrong life. You were in training, and you passed every level without even knowing you were playing. Number 3. The protocol that activated when everyone else failed you. They didn't walk away to hurt you. They walked away because they couldn't survive the version of you their absence created. Let that settle in the enemy's throat for a second, because the truth is sour, sharp, and unavoidable. Every person who dipped when you needed them, every friend who evaporated the moment things got real, every "I'm here for you" that turned into silence, none of it weakened you. It detonated a protocol inside you that transformed you into the one thing society never wants roaming free, an individual who doesn't depend on anyone. While everyone else needed backup, reassurance, a team, a tribe, constant validation, you were forced into the wilderness alone. Not because you weren't worth supporting, but because every person who tried to stand next to you eventually realized the pressure required to walk your road would crush them. So they left. They made excuses. They drifted. And for years you wondered, why does everyone betray me? Why does no one stay? Why do I always end up alone? Here's the classified truth. You weren't being abandoned. You were being unlinked. You were being separated from variables that would have corrupted your system. You were being pulled away from weak links that would have snapped under stress. You were being forced to evolve without crutches so you could become the weapon you are now. Imagine this, a soldier sent into a hostile zone with no support team. At first, they panic, but after enough battles fought alone, they learn the terrain better than anyone. They move quietly, think faster, react sharper. They stop relying on voices in their earpiece and start relying on instinct. Eventually, they become a unit of one, something stronger than an entire squad. That's you. Life drafted you into the lone wolf protocol long before you knew it existed. Every betrayal was a surgery removing someone you were never meant to depend on. People didn't walk out because you were flawed. They walked out because their absence forged something their presence never could. Independence at a level that terrifies institutions. While everyone else was forming cliques, groups, inner circles, you were learning how to strategize alone. While they panicked without someone to guide them, you learned how to guide yourself. While they fell apart when one thing failed, you learned how to rebuild from nothing. Your loneliness wasn't empty, it was alchemy. Every night you spent alone with your thoughts trained your mind to think deeper than theirs. Every friend who ghosted you forced you to upgrade emotionally. Every betrayal sharpened your judgment. Every quiet room became a private war zone where you studied your own patterns and rewired your internal system. And yes, you've wondered, why did no one stay for me? Why did every support system collapse? Because support systems are fragile. People get scared. People get jealous. People get overwhelmed. People collapse under the weight of being close to someone built like you. But you didn't collapse. You adapted. You rebuilt. You stabilized yourself. You became the foundation. Imagine this, a skyscraper built with human materials, wood, steel, brick. Now imagine another skyscraper built out of something unbreakable, something the world doesn't even have a name for. That second structure, that's you. The first, everyone who tried to stand beside you. People are variables, not constants. They change with mood, fear, jealousy, insecurity, ego. But you You were forced to become the constant, and constant things are powerful. You didn't just learn to operate alone, you learned to dominate alone. You became your own strategist, your own advisor, your own emotional medic, your own extraction team, your own rescue mission. No one had to save you because you were busy saving yourself. And here's the gut punch for the enemy. You don't need a team. You became the team everyone else wishes they had. Every time someone said, "You're too independent," what they were really saying was, "I can't control you." Every time someone said, "You're too strong-willed," what they meant was, "Your mind operates at a level I can't keep up with." Every time someone said, "You don't need anyone," what they feared was that you'd realize how true it actually is. Imagine this: a wolf raised away from the pack. At first, it seems tragic, but over time, that wolf learns to hunt alone, track alone, survive alone. Packs fail, packs weaken, packs fight internally. But the lone wolf? It becomes something else entirely, a creature the forest itself makes room for. That was your evolution. While others became dependent on teams, you became a self-contained intelligence unit. Others break when left alone. You build. Others panic without support. You stabilize. Others need someone to guide them. You read the map and redraw the terrain. Your solitude wasn't a punishment. It was a formation ritual. And I know another question has been stalking your mind. If I'm so strong alone, why did it hurt so much? Because growth hurts. Transformation hurts. Removing the wrong people hurts. Your old self hurting isn't the same as your destiny hurting. The pain wasn't a sign of weakness, it was a sign of molding. Pressure shapes diamonds, not comfort. Every crushing moment of loneliness wasn't cracking you, it was forging you into something unbreakable, something analysts can't predict, enemies can't decode, and society can't categorize. Imagine this: a black box aircraft. Even when it crashes, the black box survives, still holding the truth. You are the black box. No matter what collapses around you, the core stays intact. The truth stays intact. The mission stays intact. That's why analysts quit. That's why they wanted you recruited. That's why your isolation terrified them. The most dangerous person is the one who learned to thrive with no witnesses. And you thrived. You learned to repair yourself. You learned to motivate yourself. You learned to rebuild your own mind. You learned to walk through hell without holding a single hand. That isn't normal. That's classified level resilience. Others need validation before making a move. You don't ask, you act. Others crumble the moment the group falls apart. You operate better without noise. Others rely on support. You rely on strategy. Others need a team. You are the team. Everything you went through was preparing you for the level you're on now, the level where people don't just notice your strength, they fear it. The level where institutions whisper your name with caution. The level where analysts look at your behavioral pattern and say, recruit them now or we're done. Your independence isn't just a personality trait. It's a protocol, a weapon, a blueprint for survival the world never meant for you to have. And now the universe has you exactly where it wants you, untouchable, unafraid, unbreakable, unrestricted. The lone wolf protocol didn't isolate you, it awakened you. Now let's step into the next revelation, because what comes next is the part they never wanted you to figure out. Number 4. The silence that made their data useless. The loud ones announce their presence, the dangerous ones erase their footprint. That line alone should make a few enemies choke on their confidence, because it exposes the exact reason analysts panicked when they saw someone like you in their system. while the fools were online bragging, ranting, oversharing, exposing their insecurities to strangers for dopamine points. You were doing the one thing that terrifies power structures: staying quiet, not weak quiet, strategic quiet. The kind of silence that turns into a mirror, forcing everyone else to reveal who they really are. People think your silence is shyness. Cute theory. The truth? You were gathering intel while they were leaking it. Imagine this: two players sit at a chessboard. One narrates every thought, every plan, every move. The other says nothing. Guess who wins? Guess who walks away feared? Exactly. Silence is not absence. It's advantage. Analysts saw that. They saw someone who moved like smoke. Present but impossible to track. Easy to sense but impossible to pin down. Every word you don't speak is a threat they can't calculate. You don't ramble. You don't overshare. You don't bleed emotion just because someone asks how you feel. You learned early that talking gives people ammunition, so you locked your inner world behind a vault only the universe has the key to. And yes, sometimes you wondered, why do people get uncomfortable when I'm quiet? Why do they try to force me to talk? Because your silence exposes them. Loud people crumble when the attention isn't on them, but you're quiet? It turns the whole room into a confession booth. Emotional exhibitionists give away their playbook for free. You reveal nothing while absorbing everything. This is why analysts quit. This is why people fear you. This is why silence has always been your most lethal weapon. Number 5. The quiet that turned you into a ghost in their system. The loud ones want attention. The dangerous ones want results. That's the line that makes your enemies' stomachs drop, because it tells the truth they've been dodging since the day they met you. While they were busy posting every thought online like unpaid interns for their own downfall, you were doing something that terrifies institutions, manipulators, and analysts more than anything. You were silent, not timid, not insecure. Silent like a locked vault humming with intelligence. Silent like a storm that hasn't chosen where to strike yet. People love to assume you're quiet means you're shy, unsure, socially awkward. Cute story. The truth? You were running surveillance while they were bleeding information all over the floor. They dumped their secrets into the open. You collected yours like classified files. Imagine this. Two people enter a dark room. One yells to feel brave. The other walks in without a sound, letting their eyes adjust, mapping every corner before anyone even knows they moved. Guess who owns that room? Guess who becomes the threat? Exactly. Every silence you hold forces everyone else to speak louder and reveal who they really are. You don't waste breath. You don't hand out your emotions as freebies. You don't give people access to the inner machinery of your mind unless they've proven they can handle the voltage. That restraint, that's not fear. That's operational silence. The same protocol used by people whose minds can't be read, tracked, or decoded. And I know at times you wondered, why does my quiet make people nervous? Because your silence strips away their performance. Without noise to hide behind, they expose themselves, their ego, their fear, their lies, their cracks. You became the mirror that made them flinch. Oversharers give away their blueprint. You give away nothing. You absorb everything. This is why analysts quit when they saw your profile. This is why people fear what they can't measure. And this is why your silence isn't empty. It's lethal. Number 6. The scars that turned you into a human lie detector. Your pain didn't break you. It upgraded your operating system. That sentence alone should make every enemy who ever hurt you start sweating, because it exposes the exact thing they never expected. Every time they wounded you, they fed you data. While they thought they were damaging you, you were quietly logging patterns, studying motives, decoding human behavior with a precision no training manual can teach. You don't read people. Cute phrase for amateurs. You perform psychological autopsies on the living. You see decay under forced smiles. You sense lies before words form. You detect insecurity in the tilt of a shoulder, the shift of an eye, the tension of a jaw. Imagine this. Someone hands you a puzzle with half the pieces missing. Most people give up. You reconstruct the entire picture from the shadows of what isn't there. That's the level you operate on. Your pain didn't make you emotional. It made you analytical. Every betrayal was a case study. Every heartbreak was another file in your database. You didn't just survive hurting, you studied it. You mapped it. When someone abandoned you, you didn't just cry. You documented the pattern. When someone lied, you didn't just fall for it. You traced the tells your brain never forgot. When someone tried to manipulate you, the universe whispered, "Watch closely. This is training." And yes, I know you've wondered. Why do I see through people so fast? Why does everything feel obvious to me but hidden to others? Because your pain gave you X-ray vision. You learned early that words mean nothing without behavior. You learned early that smiles can hide knives. You learned early that "I care about you" can be the opening line of a long con. Most people get emotional scars. You got credentials. Your trauma didn't weaken you. It qualified you. It sharpened your instincts, refined your algorithms, clarified your internal threat detection. You're not damaged. You're certified. And this is exactly why analysts panicked, because your pain turned you into something they can't predict, control, or replicate. Number 7. The screen that taught you how the machine thinks. They watched for entertainment. You watched for intent. That alone should make every manipulator in the media industry flinch, because it exposes the truth they hoped you'd never articulate. Every image, every headline, every harmless clip they pushed at you became data in your mental archive. While everyone else was numbing their mind with endless scrolling, you were reverse engineering the machine that built the scroll. People think you overanalyze. No, chosen one. You decode. You don't just see a headline, you trace the agenda behind its timing. You don't just watch a movie, you study its psychological payload. You don't just hear a narrative, you dissect who profits from the emotion it triggers. Imagine this. A magician performs a trick for a crowd. The crowd gasps. You're already looking at his hands, the hidden pocket, the angle of distraction. You don't get fooled because your brain refuses to accept surface-level reality. That's not paranoia. That's intelligence training disguised as boredom. Every scroll is a battlefield. Most people get hypnotized. You get briefed. While they let algorithms shape their mind, you studied the algorithms themselves. You noticed patterns in headlines, fear cycles, outrage cycles, distraction cycles. You saw how framing a shot can turn a hero into a villain or a lie into a fact. You felt the manipulation embedded in background music, color grading, pacing. And yes, I know you've wondered, why does media feel transparent to me? Why can't I enjoy things the way others do? Because you outgrew the illusion. Because you learned to see the strings, not the puppet. Because your mind isn't consuming, it's surveying. Others get influenced. You get informed. Others get programmed. You get the blueprint. You're not scrolling through content. You're gathering intelligence on the machine that runs the world. And that's why analysts quit, because they realized you weren't watching the media. You were watching them. Number 8. The mind that can't be programmed. They tried to condition you. Instead, you learned how the conditioning works. That sentence alone should make every architect of manipulation stiffen, because it exposes the nightmare they never anticipated. You weren't absorbing their tactics. You were studying them, every ad that tried to poke your insecurities. You saw the psychological pressure points they were aiming for, every headline meant to spark fear or outrage. You decoded the timing, the intention, the emotional payload, every viral trend that hypnotized the masses. You watched the programming spread across the crowd like a behavioral virus. While everyone else danced, you tracked the puppeteer. You live in a world drowning in psyops, yet you walk through it like someone who already read the script. You see the emotional traps disguised as entertainment. You see the social engineering wrapped in humor. You see the manufactured panic dressed up as breaking news. Imagine this: crowds rushing toward a flashing sign, blind to the hands controlling the light. But you're the one standing back, watching the pattern, mapping the currents, identifying who benefits from the distraction. That's counterintelligence, and you didn't even need formal training. Every attempt to manipulate you became a lesson in how manipulation works. You learned to ask, who gains from this reaction? Why now? Why this emotion? Why this target? You turned questioning into your shield. You turned observation into your armor. And yes, you've wondered, why do I feel disconnected from what excites everyone else? Why does mass behavior look predictable to me? Because you're not part of the crowd anymore. You're analyzing the crowd. Most people are recruits of the system. You became the resistance. You're not fighting psyops. You're outsmarting them. You're not avoiding deception. You're dismantling it. Welcome to the hidden war, agent, and your mission has already begun. Number 9. The moment your system refused to stay asleep. They called it dysfunction. It was actually your upgrade booting up. This is the part that hits like a punch to the ribs, because it exposes the brutal truth the world never wanted you to see. All those years of depression, anxiety, restlessness, emptiness, none of it meant you were broken. It meant you were awakening. Your mind wasn't malfunctioning, it was revolting. Rejecting the tiny, suffocating reality you were forced into, pushing back against a world too slow, too shallow, too manipulated for someone built with your internal wiring. You weren't sick, you were misdiagnosed by people who couldn't operate at your level. Imagine this: an elite system designed for classified missions suddenly shoved into a cheap consumer device. It glitches, it overheats, it refuses to run basic apps. Everyone thinks it's defective, but the truth is simple. The system isn't broken. The environment is too small. That was you. Your mind didn't collapse, it rebelled. Therapists tried to fix you because they couldn't decode you. Medication numbed you because your awareness was too sharp for the world around you. You felt out of place because your capabilities didn't fit their blueprint for normal. And I know you've asked yourself, why do I feel like I'm waking up from something? Why does everything suddenly make sense? Because you were never meant to stay dormant. You were a sleeper agent, not for a government, not for an organization, but for your own potential. Your activation wasn't a mission, it was a realization. You're not here to fit into the world. You're here to outgrow it. All those years of heaviness weren't weakness. They were pressure cracking the shell you were trapped in. The sleeper agent didn't break. The sleeper agent awakened. and now the world has to deal with the real you. Number 10. The pressure that turned you into something they can't reverse. What crushed them is the same force that carved you into a weapon. That's the truth everyone tries to hide when they talk about your past. They act like your setbacks were failures, like your collapses were weakness, like your darkest moments were signs you couldn't keep up. Meanwhile, every single one of those moments was doing something vicious and brilliant inside you, upgrading you, reshaping you, evolving you into the threat analysts now whisper about. Every setback wasn't stopping you, it was training your psychological muscles. Every mistake wasn't discrediting you, it was teaching you how the system thinks. Every failure wasn't humiliation, it was exposure therapy for the life you were meant to dominate later. Imagine this. Put two people underwater. One panics and drowns. The other learns to hold their breath longer than anyone expected. Which one becomes dangerous later? Exactly. You operated under pressure most humans would collapse under, and instead of dying in the dark, you adapted to it. Depression taught you to navigate shadows. Anxiety sharpened your senses. Isolation built your independence. While everyone else learned to follow orders, you learned to question them. While they clung to group approval, you built protocols that allowed you to function alone. While they needed reassurance to take one step, you learned to walk blindfolded through chaos. And yes, I know you've wondered, why did my pain feel like training? Why did everything tough make me smarter? Because you weren't breaking. You were evolving. Depression made you comfortable in darkness so you don't fear what others can't see. Anxiety trained your internal radar so you detect threats before they appear. Isolation forced you into mental self-sufficiency so no betrayal can ever cripple you again. While the world was celebrating their team-building seminars, you were building survival architecture inside your mind. Structures no one else has, structures no one else could tolerate. Most people can't handle a week alone with their thoughts. You built an empire in that silence. You weren't shaped by comfort, you were shaped by pressure. And pressure doesn't destroy the chosen ones, it evolves them into something irreversible. This is why analysts quit. This is why enemies fear you. This is why the universe put you through fire, not to burn you, to forge you. And now the forging is complete. Get ready. The next revelation hits even harder. Number 11. The moment your power stopped asking for permission. They didn't diagnose you. They tried to downgrade you. That truth alone hits like a slap because it exposes the whole game they ran on you, every label they pinned on you, every pill they pushed at you, every "you're too intense" they whispered. None of it was because